It's boiling point.
Kids Will Have Their Say was the Boston record. You know, I mean that cover is iconic. You know, like running up this, you know, the Capitol steps was just not even. It wasn't even the Capitol steps. It was from the Commons. It was the only way you could really, you know. I don't think we could storm the Capitol steps without getting arrested. But we did that picture. I don't know how many times we had to do it to get it right.
I just remember we were all hanging out when, you know, we got it was going to be a photo session of some sort. Phil, Springer's brother, was going to shoot it, Film Flash. So we had, you know, 15, 20 of us, you know, all the Marblehead guys showed up. It was like a Saturday afternoon. You know, we were all there, the full Boston crew in full force. Yeah, I just remember, you know, someone came up with that idea of running up those stairs and charging. You know, I mean, you know, the picture, I'd love to see the contact sheet from that day.
Always macking, never lacking. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. What's happening, everybody, on this Shout Out Sunday? Yes, Al Burrell. I'm excited about today's show. I really am. We've done a lot of these, and every now and then, you know, we have a guest that I'm super connected with, and that I was in the trenches with, and you know, there's lots to talk about. And how about that today, that opening clip was 40 years ago to the day, was that minor threat SSD control at Buff Hall. That is amazing. And so, yeah, what's up, everybody? What's up, Feliciano? What's up, Ozzy? What's happening? Good to see you. You know, yeah, that's right. One of my favorite bands, band that changed my life, SSD. That's right. And what's up, everybody? Vinny, I hope you're doing well. Debo the Pro, represent. You know, so it's all good. Yeah, it's No Shave November. That's right. It's No Shave November. It's like I'm in the hockey playoffs, right? I'm in the playoffs, you know? Yes, that's right. From a drummer to another, Chris is a killer. Yes, you have reason. Yep. Yes, Nancy Burrill, the gang's all here. Super excited. And I appreciate you and Al tuning in. We're going to have there's going to be some special guests. It's a good one. You know, it is a good one coming down the line. Steven Messina, the hardcore shutterbug, will not be on the show today. There was a death in his family, and he's attending to his relatives. So Steven is not going to make it on today. So we wish him the best. Hello from Coney Island. That's right. Must be cold out there, man, in Coney Island. You know? Hope I know who isn't a guest. I do. I'm very careful who I let on the show. Yes, PMA sent to Stephen and his family. Southern Indiana. Jeff David, where are you in Southern Indiana, Jeff? What's going on in Southern Indiana? Where are you? Yo, Derek Murphy, come on now, Urban Street Bike Warriors represent. How you doing? Since Steven's not coming on, I'll take this opportunity here quickly to talk about some of the upcoming shows, and we'll get that out of the way. A week from today, there is no show on Wednesday, but Sunday, November 27th, of course, is Brooke Smith, actress. Of course, she was in Silence of the Lambs. She was on Ray Donovan, Grey's Anatomy, old school hardcore gal. She has a book coming out called Sunday Matinee. She will be on the show, and we will talk about her new book and her acting career. Wednesday, November 30th, R.B. Corbett, another OG New York hardcore gal. She was the singer in Even Worse. Currently, she's in the Bush Tetras and Highly Effective People. Will be on the show November 30th. Sunday, December 4th, John Monty from MOD Ministry, Mindfunk, Dragpipe, The Spiders, and Chemical Waste. Sunday, December 11th, legend, David Godless, photographer, documented the whole early punk scene in New York City. Incredible photos of the Dead Boys and the Ramones and all that. So this will be very, very cool with David Godless. Wednesday, December 14th, celebrating the release of their book, New Jersey Metal. Frank White, photographer, and Alan Tecchio, who is a singer in Hades and Nonfiction. We just announced this the other day on social media. Wednesday, December 21st, Matt Warnke, from Bold and Crippled Youth will be on the show. This one we've yet to announce. Sunday, January 15th. I got to get this on social media. John LaFada, another drummer from Neglect, Madball, Mind Over Matter, Death Cycle, and The Great Lie. John LaFada will be on the show. Also, you know what? Didn't make the cut? Let me find a show that did not make the cut. Hold on, where is that sucker? Here it is. So Sunday, December 25th, which is Christmas Day, we have decided, being it falls out on a Sunday, we've decided to do a show on Christmas Day. So anybody, I thought it would be a cool thing. We'll bring on some guests. It does fall out on a Sunday. I thought it would be a neat thing for a lot of people that might not have a lot of family, like myself in town. And it's a chance for everybody to stop by and say hi. It'll be a celebration of the show. We'll bring on all kinds of guests. So there will be a show on Christmas Day. It is our holiday episode with special guests. So that's what's happening on Christmas Day. So you do not have to be alone. You have me. You have us. You have the community. That's what's up. Yes. Great holiday show. That's right, Al. Yep. And you know what I'm saying? I need you. And you need me. And we need each other. And this is Our community. Yes, Stephen Oswald, represent. Yo, Astoria in the building. I love SSD. Bought the bootleg copy of Kids Will Have This Say around 88, 89. Hey, don't go there, man. You buy a bootleg copies. Don't go there. Do you have a lineup yet for the January? Check this out. I don't think there's going to be a Bowery Electric show in January because I was struggling to get the bill together. And then I just found out that my new film is screening in Florida on that date. It was almost like meant to be. I think I'm going to skip January at the Bowery Electric. We're going to come back February 12th with Shutdown. It's not been announced yet, but Shutdown is playing the free matinee in February. I think the date was going to be January 8th, but we skipped it. I think I'm going to skip it to screen my film. So that said, I'm a good man and a good human. Okay. Are those two separate things? I'm a good man and a good human. All right. Yep. Larry Kelly, what's up, man? The gang's all here, huh? Good, good. That's right. Al Burrell says all bootlegs need to be returned to xclave.com for FBI processing and DNA analysis. Right. Yep. Crazy, right? Yep. Anything else? All right. Philadelphia represent. Listen, Buff Hall, 40 years ago today. 40 years ago today was Buff Hall. Yep. Yeah, man. My new film is out there. The distributor has it. It's doing film festivals and temples and synagogues, and it's called The Jews and the Blues, and it's out there. As far as what I'm doing next, well, if you read that Biohazard press release, there's a big clue in there what's happening next. It's not announced yet, but it's heading in that direction. So there you go. Any chance for a Michigan date? I'm not, I got to talk to the distributor. Once the film is once the distributor has it, it's like, I kind of don't know what the fuck they're doing. And it kind of pisses me off. I'm like finding out secondhand, like, yo, your film is playing in my synagogue. I'm like, what? It's like, so let me tell you something about the film business. It's a lot like the music business. Where people sign bad record deals, people sign bad, deals for their films all the time. It's the same bullshit kind of hustle, man. It sucks, but being an artist is important, and it brings me joy. So there you go. That said, let's bring our guest on. Let me just shout out. Big sponsor shout out. We are the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, Grunge and Grime Soap Company, DTFM Vinyl Distro, and the Texas Silver Rush. The Texas Silver Rush is a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. Goddamn electric. They specialize working with musicians in all music genres, both country and Western, and hardcore, to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. The client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rollet, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, www.thetexassilverrush.com. Come on now, Grunge and Grime Soap Company. They're a handmade soap and skincare company with a rock and roll spirit based in Smashville, Tennessee. They combine their love for rock music and their love for creating products that are good for your skin and good for your soul. Since the year of our God, 2019, they've been creating high-quality, natural, handmade soaps and skincare products with ethically sourced and sustainable ingredients. They give 10% of their net proceeds to local and community outreach programs. Visit the website at www.grungeandgrime.com and enter the code DREW to get 20% off your first order. Okay, let's clear the deck. What the heck? Everybody okay? No snow yet. The Gallagher brothers, is that right? I know, right? But listen, like I said, one of my superpowers is I have the ability to reunite bands. I can't, but the more I use it, it saps my life force on the planet Earth. So I can't use it a lot. I used it for Biohazard, and I use it for a lot of scrub bands too. But if I use it like for a big band, like it takes years off my life. So that said, Oasis, listen, that could happen. I could get into that one. It's okay. It's important. You don't have to thank me for using my powers. It's why I'm here to do this show. I know, right? Don't waste it. Thanks, bro. Thanks, John. Biohazard I had to do though, Biohazard was important to everybody. Who knows what's next? We'll see. That said, let's clear the deck. Let's totally clear the deck. I'm excited about today's show, man. I am. Old friend coming on. Here we go. Today's guest is an American drummer and luthier. Got that? Big word, kids. Luthier. This is going to come into play in this interview. He's a luthier. Hailing from the hotbed of activity, Wesley, Massachusetts. He's known for his work with Bulkhead, Jen Trinan, Crime and Punishment, Star Ghost Dog, and of course, the mighty SSD. As some of us may remember early on, SSD Control. Please welcome, coming at us from Somerville, Massachusetts, our old friend and secret weapon of SSD, Mr. Chris Foley. Buddy!
Hey, Drew. Wow, thanks for that intro. That was big and bold. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You got it, buddy. You got it. See? Everyone's excited. There's a luthier coming on this show.
There you go. Guitar builder. That's a little simpler, a little easier.
This SSD Control stuff, like that's all cool, fine and good. But, let's talk about building musical instruments. That's what's up, man.
I got to tell you, I always, I kind of came to this understanding because of, right out of high school, I made some guitars and then I ended up going to Berkeley and then I immediately started making concert level flutes and piccolos out of solid gold, solid silver. Boston has a cottage industry of like world-renowned flute makers. So
is that right? I didn't know that.
Yep, it is. And so I kind of stumbled on a mission statement, which was I want to play and or make musical instruments for a living. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. So I feel pretty lucky that I've been able to I can actually say I've done that for the last 30 years. I've made those instruments that you're putting up on the
these are 3 instruments that you made, correct?
Yeah, that I had a hand in making one way or another.
Wow.
I started out doing the bench work, doing the silver work, grinding, polishing, sanding, soldering stuff together, mechanically making it work. Flutes are a real tough beast, and I didn't know that they sold instruments for $20,000. I mean, I got it. We sell silver and gold instruments. We sell probably 3 or 4 gold instruments a year. That's about $55,000 for one of those puppies.
Our friend Paul Stone says Damien from Sacrilege War Wound makes flutes for a living.
Wow.
So there's a couple out there. And then Chris Hoffman says, I live down the street from Roberto Venn's school here in Phoenix.
Okay, I have heard that name before. Yeah.
I guess that's a school for making instruments. Yeah.
So it's cool. I ended up when the time was right, switching to that full-time job, and I'm up at 5 o'clock every day going to work. I'm a working stiff, but I have reaped the rewards of it, in that I've got my own basement where I can play music and build guitars and have some fun,
Absolutely. Let's delve into the past a little bit and we'll work our way up to the future. how did you come up? Did you grow up in a musical household? How did music come into your life?
I grew up in a large family, the 8 kids in the family.
Wow.
And I grew up right in the middle of 6 sisters. So my house, if it was music, they were all in the musicals. So, you know, I heard the Mikado and Oliver and, you know, every musical you could hear when you were a kid, I heard them in front of the living room mirror. So I immediately got drawn.
That's pretty great, man. That's cool.
Yeah, there was a piano in the room, and my mother gave us basic piano lessons. But being in the middle of 6 sisters, I needed to make some noise. So I knew I wanted to play drums as long as I could remember. So in school, as soon as they let you take lessons, I took lessons. As soon as you could join the school band, I joined the school band. You know, as soon as I met somebody who played bass guitar, I said, let's make a band.
Was there anybody early on that inspired you to be a drummer? Was there like an aha moment? Did you see anything, or was it just like you had that kind of temperament that just wanted to kind of beat on things and make noise?
You know, it's interesting. I think I have this draw to musical instruments because they're kind of cool. Like they look cool. And like, I remember when I saw my first drum set, this guy, GT Wright, had played drums, and he had a blue sparkle Slingerland. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I remember, you know, you grow up in a large family, you know, you need a voice. So, I chose a musical instrument that doesn't have a voice, but you know what? I made a lot of noise, you know?
Yeah, you did.
So, yeah, you did. And we grew up right next to the playing field for the middle school. So while everybody was in the fields, I was playing drums, and I always made sure to open my windows. So everybody knew I played drums, and my first band practiced in the bedroom. Everybody knew I had a band in the bedroom, you know?
And at this point, we're talking, you were a young teenager, correct?
Oh, that was 12 and 13, 14. Right. The first band was a good friend of mine, George Rolke, and the band was called Lorelei. And,
Lorelei?
Lorelei.
I like it. I like it.
We played like, well, it was 79. So we played Black Sabbath, we played Robin Trower, we played Jimi Hendrix, we played everything. And
you pulled the Robin Trower card.
Robin Trower, Bridge of Thighs. Oh my God.
You're talking my language now.
That's how old I am. Yeah, that's right.
I love that record, man.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. I rediscover that stuff all the time. But we played Natick High School, and a chair got thrown through the through the lunchroom window, and we played when I was 15, we played this keg party that was packed. And I was just like, this is it. I mean, the room was packed, and we were just, it was just a blast. But I remember kind of getting sick of the long hair stuff, and just wanted to kind of branch out a bit and do some different things, you know? And so SSD ended up being a way for me to kind of move out of high school, out of the high school band, the cover band that I was in. And I wanted to do original music. So that's it. From ever since then, that's all I've done is original music, you know?
What high school did you go to?
I went to Wellesley High School and graduated in '82 from Wellesley High School.
Oof.
So
when you and I, and when we crossed paths in 1981, you were still in high school. Yeah. And I was just out of high school. And so how did the SSD control thing come into your orbit? How did you get involved with those guys?
Well, I think the other day we had talked about the Clash and seeing the Clash at Bonds. And I went with a friend of mine who is a year older, and he was in college, and he was a DJ, a radio DJ. And I, at the time, wanted to find a band. And, you remember there was this old paper called the Boston Phoenix.
Yes, of
And,
course.
they had
Which, by the way, New Yorkers, it's like a SAT question. The Boston Phoenix is to Boston as to blank is to New York City. A, the New York Times, B, the New York Post, C, the Village
Voice.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was it was like the Village Voice and the Boston Phoenix, were kindred spirits. Every city pretty much in that era had that sort of paper. I think the LA Recycler, every city had that kind of paper, right? Where people would be able to put personal ads and connect with musicians. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, and that's exactly what I was doing as I was searching through there and kind of meeting up with some different people. And I showed the ad that was that Al had put out, and it mentioned Black Flag and MT and the Dead Kennedys. And I knew Black Flag, I knew Dead Kennedys, and I said to my friend, "What's this MT? Who is that?" And he was like, "Oh, Minor Threat." He's like, "Oh, this." He's like, "This is the up and coming stuff. This is what you want to get into.
This is really it. This is really it, baby."
He honestly, he was this friend of mine, Burt Payne, and so I have to give him some credit for me actually getting involved, because I answered that ad, and my parents, because I couldn't drive. They drove me and my drums out to Jamie's garage where we had the tryout, and yeah.
And let me ask you, and we'll get to this. Was it the Gretsch drum set?
It was the Gretsch drum set. Yeah.
We'll get to that eventually. The infamous SSD controlled Gretsch drum set. So you come and there's a tryout in Jamie's garage.
Yep.
And I'm assuming it was early on. It was you, Jamie, Al, and they had a different singer at the time, right?
I never met the other singer. The only guy I met was Springer.
Right.
But yeah, and he was there. And I think the only thing I remember doing is the Discharge song.
Decontrol.
Decontrol. Yeah, of course. Yeah. What am I thinking? Of course. Decontrol, man. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember Al driving me back in his ultra cool Monte Carlo. We threw the drums in the back, and he drove me back out to Wellesley. Yep. So I was relying on the kindness of strangers at that point when it came for rides,
Sure. At 17 years old, right?
Right. Yeah. 16 years old. Yeah. When I joined. So
16 years old. So were you accepted immediately? Was it you got the job? Is that how it worked?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was pretty much like, let's see if we can work this out. And sometimes I'm like, when you're a drummer, you're kind of like the kid with all the catcher's gear. You're like, are they just taking me because I have the equipment? You know what I mean? But because we were definitely, coming from very different places, all of us. But so it did take me a little while to get acclimated. I got to be honest with you. I think after that first summer, I remember having a talk with Al, and I don't know if I've ever said this to anybody, but I said I didn't know if I was going to be able to hang out. I was like, because I felt so different. And I was, can I be honest with you? I was scared shitless. Because everybody was older than me.
Right.
And everybody was way cooler than I was. I just felt like, oh my God, I can't catch up to these people. It was Boston's like college radio scene at that point. It was the club scene. It was and at that point, I was a bit scared of it, and Al.
Well, it was a bit scary at the time.
It was definitely scary.
It was a bit scary. I got involved a little bit after that, but it certainly, there was no roadmap. There was no sort of familiarity, with it. When I, fell in with you guys and shaved my head, I was going to Emerson College, and I got called to like the assistant dean's office because they thought I was suicidal or I shaved my head. It was like, because the only people that were shaving their heads back then were Marines and psychopaths, So
or Hare Krishnas, or you were a
yeah,
Hare Krishna.
yeah. So there was no reference, no roadmap, and we had a little bit of a rough and tumble crew. So yeah, it's not as though there was no reference point. You guys, which and I was a part of that. We're making it up. We were making it up as we went. That in 1981.
Right, and I believe he actually thanked me on the record, which that meant a lot to me then, and what SSD became to me at that point. When I was a senior in high school and I was in SSD, forget about it. I mean, I just felt like the coolest shit in town, because every weekend I was going into Boston, meeting new people, playing these shows, and then eventually like leaving town and playing shows.
And
I mean, at 16, 17 years old, going down to New York City, playing at A7, I mean.
Now here, let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Okay,
but here is a flyer from Gallery East, which I believe this could be the first SSD Control show, because it doesn't even say SSD. Oh yes, it does. This one does. But this was Saturday, August 22nd. This might have been the second one. First or second one. It's $2. $2. And it's aggressive music for an aggressive audience. I have multiple flyers from this show.
It's definitely an early one. It's got it.
Oh, no. It absolutely is. Here you go. This is the first one, because it doesn't even say SSD. It just says hardcore punk.
Right. And you know why this one is a no-no, right? Right.
Because the SS on it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. hey. And here's one more from actually, these are all from the same show at Gallery East. There it is, Tonight.
Freeze,
that's off the so that's from that.
Yeah.
But I want to hold on. Let me clear the deck here a little bit. Yeah,
the first show. I got to say, the first show, there was a wrestling band that played.
A wrestling band?
Bill Tupper, who was kind of into wrestling in 1981. Okay.
And he played with SSD Control?
No. He had his own little band, and I don't know if there was a guy called Mono Man. He played with the Liars.
Well, I remember Mono Man.
Okay. So he was really drunk, and he got up and he played my Gretsch drums. And he put his beer right on that floor tom and started playing. And I was like, 16 years old, innocent little kid going, "Oh my God, please don't spill your beer on my drums," So, but I still have those drums. Those drums are around, man.
I was going to ask you, hey, Autumn Knox, which is that you, Leanna Ness? Says, "Yay, I made it. I had the biggest crush on Chris when I was a teenager. My best friend used to call him Chris Foliage, and we'd write funny poems about my crush. LOL." Is that you, Leanna? Is that why when I went through your pictures that you let me scan for the Boston Hardcore film, there are pictures like this in it? Oh, these have never been seen. So here you go, bro. Bam. There you go.
Oh my God.
There you go, man. There he is. Teenage heartthrob. There he is. Look at that guy.
Yeah, it killed me. We got a review one time, and they talked about the guy with the preppy good looks, and I was like, I will never be hardcore. I will always be preppy good looks.
And here's another one from the.
Thank you so much.
Here's another one from the Leanna Ness, Chris Foley collection. Look at this.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's Leanna.
Oh my God.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Those have never been seen. So
thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yes. She says, of course, I took tons of pics. I'm like looking through, when we did the Boston Hardcore film, we had these scanning parties, and we scanned. People showed up with their photo. This is before. This is now 12 years ago, right? So it wasn't like it is now where everyone has a scanner. So we would have scanning parties in Boston. And so Leanna comes with her photos, and we scan them. So I'm looking through her collection. I'm like, Chris Foley.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, those are from. She says those pics are from the show at the VFW hall with Minor Threat.
Oh, okay. That was an awesome one.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So I have a clip, and I'm going to. This is from the Gallery East. This is from that very show with the freeze, and it's down and dirty and raw, but
of course.
But here you go. Yo, look at this kid digging in, huh?
I think
digging in, buddy.
I was barely holding on. That was a long version of that song. That was like the jam version of that song. I've never heard it that long. That's amazing.
Digging in here.
That's like, hey, I'd like to point out the fashion at the time. Did you notice that Mr. Sharappa was wearing a bum flap? Do you remember bum flaps? I don't know. They came and went, but I think that we should bring them back again.
Yeah. No, Springer wore them a lot. Yeah.
Springer wore them a lot.
Jay Johnson rocked them a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were for, but
yeah. It was a real fashion statement,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so much fun to see those, because a lot of times when I think about it now, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever hold sticks and do that for 30 minutes. I mean it was it's brutal.
Yeah, it was intense. This I want to talk about this bit here. Any recollections of recording this now iconic record?
Definitely. It went through a couple versions, right? And the big story I remember was setting up in Larry Lassade's basement and to record. We spent a good 4 or 5 hours getting drum sounds and bass sounds, and then we finally get to Al's amp. And this is a guy's basement, but he's in his father's house,
right?
And Al hits the first chord on his guitar, and the guy, his dad, comes running down the stairs and literally pulls a power cord out of the wall and says, "What do you think this is, a noise factory?" And at which point Larry had to go back and talk him down and give him a couple bucks to go see a movie so that he would leave so that we could do some of the recording for it. Wow. So, and again, like you were saying earlier, there was no roadmap. It was pretty, you're going in and you got a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. You got to go in and do this. You got to try to be, dare I say, professional about recording it and getting down a version that you liked and that you thought was good. And I know that, sometimes I come out and I go, oh, I wish it sounded like this. I wish it sounded like that. But when I listen back to it now, that's what recording was in 1981 and 82. It was 8-track recording,
And this was not recorded at Radio Beat, huh?
This is the thing I'm trying to remember. It started at Larry Lasad's, and I think it finished up at Radio Beat.
Got it.
And I may be wrong on that. You may have to. My memory may be failing.
Yeah, what Al or will chime in, or Jamie or something. But this record is just one of those kind of records that if I could sum it up, it would just be blah. It's just like this blah. It is the most intense, blast of, teenage angst. It is incredible. And listen, I can't ask you, like, did you think when you were recording it that it was going to become I mean, but here, Al says started in Malden Oak Grove.
Oh yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Because that when we played and we started recording, and it was so hot in the studio that the tape machines started slowing down.
Oh, and then Al says, then Radio Beat.
Okay.
And thinking of this, what I will ask is, do you ever in your travels, or in now that you have a teenage son and all that, have you ever been sort of in a position where someone's would come across or realize or connect the dots and be like, you played on that?
You know what? It's funny because you mentioned my son. There was a skate shop down the street here in Somerville, and when he was like 8 or 9 years old, we were going to go down and get him a board and some trucks and some wheels and the whole deal. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, and I don't know how we struck up a conversation, but the guy who owned the place was a hardcore fan and completely into it and blown away. And oh my God, can I take your picture? Let me put it on Facebook. So it's me and my son. And I think that's when he realized, oh, wow, this meant something. I don't think he, the music isn't for him, but he does know and understand what it was at that time to be that age and to kind of grab life by the horns a little bit and say, okay, let's go do something. Let's go, what it took to, I talked to him about the commitment it took to do the band and to, commute back and forth and all the time. And, that sometimes I was with the band. I could have been with my friends, but instead I went in town and I played in a band. And I'm like, and look at what it means now. I'm still running into people who know who this band was.
Sure.
And I think that at that time, I said this later on, I didn't realize how hard it is to put 200 people into a room.
Yeah.
Like when I played with SSD and we would go and there'd be 800 people in a room, I didn't know how hard it is to do that as a musician.
Sure.
And so I was kind of lucky that way, in that we played a lot of really cool, big shows that later on in life I came to appreciate. Like, okay, now I understand when I'm meeting people all over the country who know what it was.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on. I have a couple of photos. Wait, let me find. So. Media Workshop is a place. The first hardcore show I ever saw was in the Media Workshop, and the first hardcore show I ever saw was in the summer of 1981. Was SSD Control. Now, this might have been a show or two after that, because there was always something happening there. But I took these photos. These are photos that I took these photos, and
nice.
Summer of 1981. Here's a shot. But what's really cool about these shots, and here's one, and you get extra points on this one for the for the bed sheet backdrop, bro. You win with
Nice.
that. You know, like the
Nice.
hand. How much art? You know, bed sheet backdrop. That's like. But yeah, I took these shots as a
Yeah.
teenage as a team. There's where's my great one, Jamie.
Yeah, I was doing the famous blowjob face in that last photo.
Right.
Somebody pointed that out to me, so I was very careful to close my mouth after that. You know,
Here's
It's,
probably here's the best one I took in that at that show. I mean, this is
oh,
and there
nice.
and there it is. There's the Gretsch drum set.
There it is.
What's
Yeah,
tell us about that iconic drum set, and do you still have it?
I still have that drum kit.
That's insane.
When I was 14 years old, I had a crappy little drum kit, and I was ready to move up. And I walked into a music store, and I was like, "What do you got for $200 or whatever?" And they showed
Right.
me what they had for $200, and I was thoroughly disappointed.
Right.
And I got to the front door, and there was a stack of Gretsch drums, just beautiful.
Right.
And the guy said, "Well, if you save your money, you could buy this for $600."
Phew.
And now I'm like, ain't gonna happen. I
Right.
get home, my parents have a discussion, and that we didn't have a huge amount of money, but I think my grandmother had given me $200 for a part of her inheritance or something.
Right.
And they said, you can spend your $200 on that drum kit, but you got to make the other $200 before 60 days is up.
Oof.
So I busted my ass on the 60th day. I walked in the door and I handed them the rest of the money. And I've had that drum set ever since. It's been, back and forth across the country. I don't know how many times, but I'll never get rid of it.
Did you play that set exclusively in your tenure with SSD Control?
No. Remember, I had a really cool blue drum kit. On the way to practice on Route 1, we used to drive by this crappy music store, and it was in the window for like 2 years or something.
Right.
And then
right.
I talked Al into buying it for me. So it was, through the kindness of the band, I think that I got that one. But
so check this out. So those photos those photos that I just put up, I took, right? When I did the Boston Hardcore film and screened a bunch of Phil and Flash's pictures, right? The same show, right? And here's the same show, and you could see me. I'm behind the speaker there. You see my legs there, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you see me there. And in this photo, let me find it. Where would that be? I got it somewhere. Hold on. Here it is. In this photo, this is so great when stuff like this, when history matches up like this.
Oh, it's awesome.
In this shot, you see me on the left with the camera in my hand, poking out from behind the speaker. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and this is at the end of the set. You see Al, when he would take his guitar off at the end, when you were playing the end, he would take and he would jump, he would jump into the pit. And
Yep.
this is literally, in that moment there. You see me with the camera and connecting the dots. But like we talked about, those places like the Media Workshop, which was a funky place, bro.
Oh,
like
man.
Any memories of that place?
Well, no, and it was definitely a lot of work to play at that place, because how many flights of stairs did you have to go up?
5
to get there, right? 5.
Yeah.
You had to carry everything. Yeah. You had to carry everything up 5 flights of stairs.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but that space, I was like, man, if something goes down here, where are you going? You know what I mean? I mean, it definitely was an alternate space. It was the definition of an alternate space.
Yep.
And that was what was cool about it too, though, was because, the guy, Kevin was pushing the boundaries of what was a live show and what could go on and what could happen,
Yeah. Here's another one. You see me peeking out from behind that speaker there. you know, with the camera in my hand. But you know, a lot of people glamorize things early on, and the perception is that, you know, people would think that there was, you know, a lot of kids at these shows. But truth be told, like those early gallery, those early media workshop shows, you know, there was like 15, 20, 25 kids there at the first couple of shows, and they were incredible. It was just kids our age, man. It was awesome.
Dude, look at who you know. There's Choke. There's Pat, there's, you know, Tony, there's, you know, it's like, I'm just looking around the room, seeing all the other people that eventually ended up in bands. Then it just grew and grew and grew from that point. But you know, you're totally right.
I mean, behind me is Bob Sensi. There's what's his name from Kill Slug. Then there's Richie Collins. Standing in front of him is wearing the "Sick of Things the Way They Are" shirt. Is Steve Grimes from the Nephews. Behind him is Jimmy Johnson, who started Forced Exposure. There's Tony Perez with his back to us. There's Choke, and with the weird sort of head shave on the right, that's Jake Phelps.
That's Jake. Could only be.
The one and the only Jake Phelps. And one last one. Here's you know, this is what was going on. I guess I put the camera down for a minute, and I got in the mix with my sweatpants and combat boots. But there's Dave Smalley. You know.
Yep, Dave Smalley.
Dave
Dude,
Smalley.
look at you. 40 years ago, man.
Crazy. You know, there's a shot I have of. Oh, here it is. Here's a rarity. How about Chris Foley in the scrum?
Okay, now I saw this photo, and I think it's me, but there was a time when Dave Collins and I looked remarkably.
I'm not buying that. That's Dave Collins.
No, well, I was like, dude, did I wear sweater vests? I was like, did I wear a sweater vest? I guess I may have, you know.
It looks like it's hard to comment on fashion.
Dude, the best thing about this photo is if you look just next to me, there's a foot with a sock on it. What is it? What was going on there? What happened?
It was a scrum. It was a scrum, bro. It was a scrum.
It was abandonment. You know what I mean? As a teenager, you know.
You know, one thing about SSD Control in that era is you guys played with a lot of bands, and you played with Minor Threat a bunch of times. You played with the Bad Brains in their prime, and SSD Control always held their own, and like you always gave those incredible bands a run for the money. I mean, there was some incredible shows, including you may remember. This one right here, which was the hold on, here we go. This is just nuts. You guys, I'll never forget this one. The Bad Brains retirement shows at CBGB's.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And that was also Francois' debut, I believe.
Oh yeah. Right.
So it was the first time we had added the extra player there.
Yeah.
And those shows were crazy, and just amazing shows. I mean, how many times did they retire? I don't know. It was at
this was sort of the bit that was, you know, this was the big one, and they did stop playing after this for a little while, and really this was the end of the era for them. I mean, when they stopped at this point, they came back, I think, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 years later. But yes, these were the Christmas, correct. These were the Christmas weekend shows, and they were just incredible, man. You know, and even this picture, you see the photographer Glenn Friedman with his back, with his back, you know, sitting on the stage, and you know, there's Andy Strahan in the back. But if you look up top, you see Dr. No from the Bad Brains watching you guys with their friend Kindu, and yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, I think isn't that the show where Al broke his SG over his knee?
Yeah.
right? And I just remember Dr. No being like, "Oh, Al, you
Yeah.
broke your guitar, man." And it was
That could be this right here.
yeah,
It's going down.
it,
Yeah.
it it went down, and he just looked like a warrior when he left the stage with the guitar dangling in two pieces. It was an amazing show.
I was there. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. It was
CBs, man,
that
CBGB.
set you guys played at CBGB's that day is forever seared in my brain. It was one of the most incredible musical, it was incredible. I mean, you guys crushed it, And then
Well, thank you, sir.
the Bad Brains here. I like this one. You got your game face on here. I like this one. You got like super game face on there, man.
Whoa. Yeah. I didn't take my shirt off a whole lot.
I
So
know, man. I noticed. I'm like, look at this, huh?
those are ones I showed to my son. I'm like, look, see, I was kind of, I was okay when I was young.
I was kind of buff.
He's taking my place big time.
But but having, I mean, you guys probably played with Minor Threat like 5 or 6 or 7 times. You played with the Bad Brains like 5 or 6 or 7, 8 times.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
yeah.
My first time playing with the Bad Brains was at a club in Boston called Streets. I don't know if you remembered it.
Excuse me. Should I pull the photos and the
Oh,
flyers?
God.
Go ahead.
Those shows, that club only lasted like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And it still is one of my favorite clubs in Boston ever. And we did a show with the Bad Brains. The first time they came to town, I remember meeting them. I remember meeting them out back. I remember HR giving me the Pay to Come single, which of course I still have.
Yep.
And just being so blown away with that show. And my parents let me, it was a school night. And they were like, yeah, you can do this. You're playing at a nightclub. And I remember going to school the next day, and they let me go to school late. And I walked in the door, and all the halls were empty. And I was like, yeah, because all you suckers are in class. And I was playing with the Bad Brains last night. I was like, nobody in the school knows what I just saw last night. And it was just, I was high at that moment. It was just like, it was the spirit of what was going on, man.
Here's a shot of you when you guys were playing with the Bad Brains at Streets, and there's me delivering the Hebrew hammer on somebody.
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember those shows well. Streets had that. Didn't they have the pole? They had like a pole in the middle.
They definitely had one. I remember the pole.
Yeah. I have the flyer. It'll turn up. But yeah, and then another one, and this is just another trip that we've talked about, and is, and I know you guys get in Al's van, but this is sort of a legendary show when down in DC when you guys played the Chancery with Iron Cross and Government Issue. And here's a shot that I have that Bridget Collins took of the sidewalk in front. And there's you talking, there's me on the left, Sab Gray from Iron Cross, and you talking to him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then Shoke on the right. Yeah.
I think I may still have those jack boots, believe it or not, stuffed away somewhere, just as a memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just as a memory.
Yeah. You were doing it right there, man. You were kind of, you were getting acclimated to the whole thing,
Yeah, I got acclimated. Never shaved my head, but that's okay.
Was there any and it's an obvious kind of question, but was there anybody you guys played with in that era that you were just really just taken aback with, in awe of?
I remember seeing MDC, and they did a show where, I thought everybody was fast, and they played so like off the charts hot. It was just fast and musically, I just remember it hitting me and you know, a lot of bands would grab me like that. You know, I remember TSOL grabbing me like that. You know what I mean? I remember Battalion of Saints. I think I want to say.
Here's a shot of MDC at the Gallery East playing with you guys.
Yeah. That was probably the show I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I just pulled it out of the file. You know. Yeah, here she goes. Gallery East MDC show at Gallery was fantastic. They were really nice guys too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I remember like hanging out and chatting with them and being totally impressed with like, wow, these people are coming all the way from like Texas or something. I don't know where they're coming from, you know. Right. You know, people making that trip across country, and there was definitely that camaraderie that, you know, you knew these people had just survived driving across the country,
right,
and were making it show to show, you know, however they were making it, you know, because there wasn't much money in what was going on, you know.
But we've talked about that often on the show, about how, you know, back then, you know, you kind of get in the van, you go to this town, and you kind of hope for the best. You know, you got some, like, you're calling on some you're calling some kid's parents' house, you know, Joey, the phone's for you, you know, and it's like, hey, we're in town, man. Like, where are we going? You know, and like, I mean, you guys were like at the forefront of that, you know, and I know Al was very regimented, thank God. And really, you know, Al always had a game plan, you know, and which was good. But, you know, you guys just sort of, you know, you went into a lot of kind of towns on a wing and a prayer. You know?
Oh, totally. We definitely did. And, you know, I mean, to Al's credit, he tried to keep all the Boy Scouts in line, you know, which was an impossible task to do because, you know, boys will be boys, you know what I mean? So, yeah, how many floors did I sleep on, you know, at the Discord house? I remember being in Detroit and it was freezing out, but Springer and I were not going to sleep on the floor of this house, which supposedly was the MC5 house. But, you know, you're talking 1982. So what's the MC5 house like now? So we slept in the van and it was cold that night. I remember, you know, you do what you had to do, you know.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, right?
or just to the next town.
Absolutely. Hey, let me take a sponsor break here. We'll take a couple minutes and we'll come back with Sid the Kid and we'll do album of the week. Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll see you in about 6 or 7 minutes.
Sounds good.
That's right. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. And our guest today is Chris Foley. And yeah, it's a good one. Let me find where is let me find Stay Calm. Lots more to come. Let's find our promo and away we go.
Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Hey guys, Vlad from Organic Grill. As you can see, we're in new location on West 3rd Street, right by Blue Note and Comedy Central. The place is bigger, kitchen is bigger, we have more varieties, more food. We are looking forward to treat you guys with great dishes. All Hardcore Chronicles, welcome to Organic Grill. We are going to serve all the events as we usually do, and we are happy to see you guys.
Peace, what it do? Welcome to NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
Video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young reader section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars! We are New York hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
And welcome back. This is the one, the only, often imitated, never duplicated, count your change and clank your chains. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Super excited about today's show. Our old friend Chris Foley is on. We're talking SSD control. We're going to get into a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Show's probably going to go a little later today. So, if you got someplace to go, if you got a plane to catch, you're fucked. We're going to go a little bit later today. We got lots to talk about here. Want to mention a couple of events that are coming up. On Saturday, December 3rd is the Brooke Smith book signing that I am moderating at the Bowery Electric. It is co-hosted by Women of the Pit. It's down at Generation Records. There's an after-show party at 9 p.m. after this event at 96 Tiers, which is really the basement of the old A7. Wednesday, December 7th, we announced this the other day. It is the At the Matinee American premiere at the Nighthawk Cinema in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This is a documentary film about the New York hardcore scene that a couple of us are in, and this is the American premiere. I am hosting the Q&A along with Walter Schreifels from Gorilla Biscuits and Quicksand, the Youth of Today, and our friend Olivia Forsyth. Tickets are on sale now. Half the tickets sold in a day. They're at the Nighthawk. This might just sell out pretty quick, so you might want to make your schmoove. Sunday, December 18th is the Holiday Slamboree, free all ages matinee at the Bowery Electric with Faded Lines, Serial Poets, Concrete Ties, Voice of Doom, Daija, Spoiler NYC featuring Alan Robert from Life of Agony, and Sworn Enemy. This is going to be a banger. Also co-hosted by Women of the Pit. The night before is the Hardcore Punk exhibit opening party. It's the night before. We'll all be down there, down at the at 229 Center Street. So there you go with all that. For those that may be new to this game here, please support the show. Holidays are coming. Please be generous. Please support the show. The show needs your support. There's a Patreon page. I've been releasing a whole bunch of interviews for the new book that I'm working on, The Fly New York Hardcore Chronicles Volume 2, 1990 to 1999. Patreon only material, lots of other stuff. Please be a patron, support the show. That's what makes this happen. There's a PayPal address if you can make a donation, please. Time is marching on. This show must march on with it. Also, there's a super chat function. If you have a question for our guest when it's question time, please use the super chat function for a couple of bucks. It comes through in color. I can't miss it. You come right to the front of the line. Everybody else all right? Yeah, man. The Hebrew Hammer, right? It's another great band name. Yeah, that's when my dad used to box, he had the Hebrew Hammer. That's what we used to call it. Yeah, I look forward to Sundays too, man. Is the beard coming back? Looks that way. Looks like. Thank you, Buick City Films, Flint. Are you in Flint, Michigan? This is a great episode. I knew it was going to be a great episode. So there you go. Yes, thank you. The Patreon page keeps hopping with great stuff. Please join Patreon. Please support the show. That said, let's clear the deck. Let's clear the deck. Hold on. I'm on it. How's that? Hallelujah. That said, let's bring the one, the only Sid the Kid on the show. Hey, bro.
What's up, Drew? What's going on?
What is that, an air conditioner behind you?
Yeah, I'm too lazy to take it out. I mean,
Are you going to leave it in for the winter?
put a cover over it. No one's gonna know nothing.
What kind of cover are you going to put over it? I got mine's still in.
Hey, if it falls, it falls. As long as it don't
Well, listen, I don't know about your place, but I have one of those old school radiators that like even if you turn it off, it's still 1,000 degrees. So
Wait.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Situated right underneath. Yeah. So basically, what you do is you keep the air conditioner in the window, so the cold air kind of leaks through, and it sort of creates somewhat of a balance.
Pretty much.
That said, let's bring our guest back on, Mr. Chris Foley. Hey, man.
Hello there.
Hey, what's going on, Chris?
Hey,
How are
Fred.
you?
I'm doing all right. How's it going over there?
Oh, I'm waiting for this one, Drew. I had to do
All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, here we go. This is Album of the Week. Boom. There you go. Go ahead,
Nice.
Sid. You have the floor.
Wow, me? Oh, get out of here, Drew. Get out of here. But anyway, guys, all right, well, let's get into it. Basically, going a little deep into the archives. I wanted to pull this one out. A lot of people don't talk about this record, but we will today, and that is the Combat Rock by The Clash. This is their 5th studio album, which was released, I believe, on May 14th, 1982 on CBS and Epic Records. It was produced by Glenn Johns and the band themselves, working on this record. Being recorded at 3 different studios at the time in the span of September 1980 up until April 1982 at Ears Studios in London, Electric Lady Studios in New York, and Wanford in Hampshire, England. When this came out, in the UK, I believe it charted at number 2, spending 23 weeks in the charts, and then peaked at number 7 in the US, spending 61 weeks in the United States charts. The album was propelled by toppers, Rock the Casbah, and obviously, if you don't know the damn song, at any age you should know what the fuck that song is at this rate, and at the time too, it really became a staple at MTV, even though MTV was a new thing. And wow, they actually played music videos back then too, kids. The album definitely did continue to influence, a lot of funk and reggae like the previous albums, but also featured, more of a radio-friendly sound, which alienated quite a bit of, some of the Clash crew at the time. The recording, process of the album was tiring and full of infighting between Mick Jones, Joe Strummer, and on top of Topper's heroin addiction grew worse. He slowly became distant from the band when, just at the time, I believe 5 days before the record came out, is when Topper got the hook, which, is a sad thing. He was a great drummer within itself. Glenn Johns wanted to produce this to be more of a radio-friendly sound of combat rock. Following the triple album Sandista, Joe felt at the time, the band was drifting creatively. So Paul, who was the bass player also for The Clash, agreed with Joe, dissatisfaction towards the boring professionalism of The Clash's then manager, Black Hill Enterprises, I want to say. So they wanted to get their original manager back in the fold. That pissed Mick Jones off, and this is where basically that core lineup basically became the beginning and the end for that, And when, especially going back to Topper's drug use, even though I don't want to really touch on that, the fact that you're spending 100 pounds a day on dope for that, and it was just like something, was kind of a sad thing. He was a really good drummer. It was a really good album, and it just kind of, it fell through. They wanted to bring back, the way originally how they wanted to write this record, they wanted to restore the whole chaos and, the energy of the band's early days when they brought back Bernie Rose, their original manager, in February of '81. But of course, it kind of didn't really go through how they planned it. And then of course, after this record, it just basically started going downhill.
All right. Well, Chris, I know we spoke a little bit beforehand, on the pre-show, a couple days ago, and you were talking about early drum influences, and we decided to go with this. Any comment on this record, this band, this drummer?
This band and seeing the drummer, and maybe it was because I saw him at Bonds. I think we talked about that, and seeing him in a club setting, playing these songs that I had been listening to for a couple of years in my bedroom, and kind of, I think you said it, like expecting chaos. Topper was so solid, so rock solid, and played a groove. He could make a 2/4 beat swing, which is I think like a lot of what came about, like especially in Rock the Casbah, it completely shines through.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, you must have been going to Bonds, man. You must have been pretty young at that point. That was a young guy coming to New York for that,
Well, my that buddy of mine who was a college radio dude, he graduated from high school. He got tickets. The next day we hopped on a train on a Saturday, went down to Bonds, saw the show.
Wow.
Went to Howard Johnson's and hopped on the train and went back to Boston. It was an amazing show. It was really great. Hey,
go ahead.
I noticed that my brother chimed in there.
Is that Peter Foley, your brother?
Yeah, that'd be my older brother. Shout, Peter.
Yeah, and, there you go.
He's reminded me that at that particular time, our cousin, she's actually a cousin twice removed or something like that. Ellen Foley.
Oh no! Stop it!
Ellen Foley was dating Mick Jones at that time.
Stop it, bro!
I'm not kidding you, man.
Bro, Ellen Foley lives in my neighborhood now, bro.
Oh no way!
I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. She lives a couple blocks from me.
Oh, and I mean, I haven't decades, but she was so cool and so nice. And
did you ever have interaction with her growing up? Like she's a
I had great aunts who she was connected to, but she came through Boston once because she sang on Meatloaf's.
Of course, Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
That was hers.
The studio recording.
Studio version.
Ellen Foley. The live version with the video is our friend Carla DeVita. Who's married to the actor Robbie Benson now. Carla's a friend of mine and a friend of Michael Lagos. But yeah, Ellen Foley, and also, I mean, listen, we could do a whole class show together. But Ellen Foley did that solo record, which in a lot of ways people call it the Lost Clash record, because her solo record is the Clash backing up Ellen Foley, the whole record.
Right. So she's going out on tour for that record. She's opening up for ELO at the Boston Garden.
Wow.
I'm a senior in high school in SSD, and she gets us tickets, gets us backstage. We meet her. She's such a nice person. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I play in a punk band. And she's like, oh yeah, my boyfriend plays in a punk band. I'm like, no shit, really? I mean, it was pretty cool at the time to feel like you had a connection,
I didn't. Who would have thunk it that Chris Foley and Ellen Foley are distant cousins? That's
so incredible. If you see her, tell her I say hi.
I see her in the neighborhood. She's in one direction, Cyndi Lauper's in the other direction. Listen, I just want to say, I'm a big Clash fan. I'm a big Topper Headon fan. It's in my world when Topper Headon, left the band. That was really in a lot of ways the end of the Clash. And Joe Strummer says it in the documentary when he says we should have just taken some time off because the band was those four guys. And like when that one guy left, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same band. And it's interesting because I've been listening to this album a lot lately. They just re-released it with all the extra tracks. And when I'm down in Florida driving my dad's car, he only has a cassette player. And we went to sort of the Goodwill of the Salvation Army, me and my gal, we kind of rummaged through the cassettes and they had Combat Rock. So Combat Rock is one of the cassettes we have in my dad's car. I just listened to it. And this was a record that I kind of wrote off early on because of, should I stay or should I go, and Rock the Casbah, but there's a deep dive there's a deep dive to do on this record with with the Allen Ginsberg song, Ghetto Defendant, and Red Angel. This record has some great stuff, and a lot of people don't know that this record was originally mixed by Mick Jones, and the mix caused a lot of problems. They pulled the mix from him, and then Glyn Johns remixed it. So there's an original version of this record with the original version was Mick Jones' mix, which caused a lot of problems because he was going in the direction of like a Big Audio Dynamite at this point, right. And Joe Strummer wanted to, kind of keep it, back to the roots, and Mick Jones was really doing like all kinds of, dancey stuff and this and that. Well, and so they pulled the mix from him. Anyway, I could go on about. I could do 40 minutes on this record, but anyway, that's that. I love the record. I love the Clash. Topper Heat. Drummers make bands, man. And nothing for nothing. Chris, you were like we considered you. You were the secret. And Al said this to me too. You were the secret weapon of SSD Control. You had a couple of guys there that were just figuring out their instruments. But you were a little bit, you were going to Berkeley, and you were the secret weapon of SSD Control. And drummers make bands, and Topper Heaton made the Clash, and what's his name from Guns? Steven Adler made Guns N' Roses, and like just that kind of thing. So
thank you, man. I appreciate that. I feel like SSD was like, especially early on, it was groundbreaking in a way that I constantly, as a musician, am trying to reach back and find that energy that you had back then when it was so kind of raw, and when you're working with people who are just trying to figure out their instrument, you don't really know what you're going to stumble on. You know what I mean? So I don't think we knew what we were stumbling on. Yeah. But 40 years later, that double time beat, like I noticed when my kid was really young, all of his cartoons had like music that was basically like hardcore music. It was just and I'm like, that's because all the people making these cartoons now are our friends, right? Who went through all that stuff,
Yes, of course, and that music that we were part of in the early 80s is now a part of the worldwide lexicon. It's just people know what hardcore is and what what slam dancing is and all that kind of stuff. It is part of the world we live in now, which is absolutely incredible that and exciting that we see that in our lifetime. Yo, Sid, you need to shout anybody out. Thank you. That was great.
Not just yet, Drew. I just want to double back really quickly how you were talking about the extra tracks that were re-released. Yeah. This goes back to how, like, even when the band debated how many songs they wanted on the new album, again, this is between how, like, Mick and Joe were fighting about it. And again, because Mick was more in favor, like, doing lengthier dance mixes, as you said before. Joe wanted to keep it at the roots, how like those first two records were, that kind of thing. And the fact that originally, when it was the original release, it was supposed to be 77 minutes, supposed to be a double album. And Joe didn't want to have nothing to do it. So they
already put out Sandinista that was 3 albums. So they had to pull it back a little bit. But
so instead of a 77-minute double album, it just got whittled down to a single LP, which was only 46 minutes. And, Combat Rock, is the best-selling album by the band, believe it or not. Being certified double platinum in the US, reaching number 2. And then in the UK, many believe this did really reach, the band reached its peak, and I believe it did, maturity-wise, and, basically everybody knows Rock the Casbah, Should I Stay or Should I Go is really like that hit, but only as of 91, that's when people really started to really listen to the song and more so the album itself. And, and again, it gets back to, just around that time, when Topper was fired, days before the record. And then right after the Combat Rock tour is when Mick Jones got the axe.
I saw Mick Jones' last show at the Clash at the US Festival. Sid, when's your next live show?
I don't know, Drew, because you know what? Adulting responsibilities suck. When you got to work a 60-hour work week, it sucks.
All right.
But thanks, Sid. One quick, I do have the shout out though, Drew. Shout.
All right, go.
Hey, big Sunday shout out to my brother Ryan Packer. If you don't know who he is, he's been a mainstay in Slapshot for well over a decade. Worked with Dropkick Murphys over the years, but he's one solid dude. He's one of my brothers, amazing guy. If you haven't checked out the new Slapshot material, definitely go check it out. They're writing new material, and they believe he's got some they got some new stuff coming out. They definitely will be playing early spring in Boston, so keep an eye on that. And I'm gonna get out of here, everybody. So y'all enjoy the show. Thank you,
See you
Chris.
later, Sid.
Drew.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you.
All righty. Cheers, guys.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm definitely getting that the extended mix there. I got to hear the other tracks.
It's interesting. It just came out. It's interesting. There's some cool stuff on there, for sure. What else? Let me spit that out. So let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on in our journey here. So we touch. We didn't even touch on Get It Away, which is fine. We're going to sort of gloss over that. Get It Away was people ask me sometimes, like, Drew Stone, what's your favorite hardcore record? And I say SSD Control, Get It Away. It was, I think it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the record where sort of everything came together. Is that safe to say?
I would say that. I mean, I feel like it's definitely probably my favorite. I feel like some of the stuff that we wrote on there, I'm like, what the hell? Where the hell did that come from? What were we thinking? And it's one that's over in a blink of an eye, and then you got to put it back on again. So
like, I think it's 6 songs, right? It's like
something like that.
Yeah.
Incredibly short. So
yeah,
actually, that's why it was cool to see that footage where we were playing a song. We're actually playing longer. I was like, oh my God, yeah, we could play longer than 2 minutes. So that, and I felt like the sound on that record was just bigger and bolder, and also had a little bit of the weirdness of the band too,
Yeah, and also it was the first record you did with Francois. And am I remembering correctly? Francois was a friend of yours. Was he going to Berkeley? You brought him into the fold?
I actually went to high school with him, so we were high school friends. And I dragged him into it. I don't think he had no idea what he was getting into.
Yeah, he was a quiet kid, man.
Yeah, he was pretty quiet, but I loved his guitar playing, and I knew it would be pretty whack with what we were doing. So so that gave me a ride to practice and such. Yeah. So it was good,
But it was kind of that era there, that moment where, like, Black Flag got a second guitar player, Minor Threat got a second guitar player. It was sort of like the dominoes started, the Agnostic Front, like the dominoes were falling, and it seemed like, that's the way artistically a lot of these first wave American hardcore bands were going.
Yeah. And I think it's actually remarkable when you listen back to records, you can hear these bands kind of progress from, like, okay, I know 3 chords. Yeah. And then eventually they're like, oh, well, I want somebody who's a rhythm guitar player, and I need somebody who's a lead guitar player. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, huh? What? Yeah. And I think that was hardcore went through that big time. It was a learning curve. It was basically the learning curve of all the musicians in the bands,
Well, Al says, but SSD really needed another guitar player to help me. Yeah, listen, there was a certain, there was a certain charm to me. There's SSD Control and there's SSD. Like I like in my, like, I see there was a point of, like, the early stuff, the real primitive early stuff to me was SSD Control. The stuff kind of, a little later on was SSD, but the real, so to me there was a transition when things changed, and certainly certainly the evolution continued after Get It Away, when you guys kind of when you How We Rock and and then from there, when like these other guys kind of grew their hair out, and
Right.
and that started going. And so one of the things was that I scanned for the film was sort of the infamous how we rock photo session, which things people were growing their hair out, right?
And it gets better. Yeah. I think people start taking people.
There
we go. There's the one.
There you go.
Jamie,
Well,
and I'm like posing for I don't know what,
Yeah, this is so that said, I think this is the shot that we were talking about. Right? This is it here.
Yeah. That
so
one.
I think I think what has to happen here is and the fan base wants it. We have to bring on the teenage heartthrob, my friend and yours, Jamie Sharappa. What's up? Listen, bro. Listen, I love it. Jamie, listen, they made the right move by putting you up front, bro.
I tell you, you got to bring me on the most embarrassing moment of the show. This is when I get pulled in.
How much were you working out at that time? You definitely were going to the gym.
It was just the benefits of youth, I think. There.
That's good.
But I got to say something real quick. You guys have been talking about the infamous Gretsch drum set.
Yeah.
So that bass that I hold there, I still got that too. So.
Chris, nice.
We need to bring the kids out for a play date one of these days. We'll,
definitely, yeah.
Get the kids back together again.
Yeah, exactly. Have to put it back together again.
That's great. That's great. And Al says that. Hold on. Al says that this photo session was for the Boston Herald and Sweet Potato Magazine. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. I thought it was for Calendar, but no, you're right. Boston Herald.
There you go. There you go. But yeah. So
you can tell we're in the basement. Look at how low that ceiling is. Like our heads are almost touching it. But that was
is that Al's basement?
That's Al's basement where SSD Control practiced the whole time we were together, I think. Except for that, the infamous Lynn practice space we had for about a month.
Yeah.
Right. Where we almost died. So
yeah. Almost got beat up.
Yeah, SSD Control, the next generation. Yeah. So there you go. I know you were watching the show, Jamie. Can you glean any perspective on kind of what we were talking about? I mean, one thing that I brought up, that how you guys would play these shows with Minor Threat and the Bab Raids and Black Flag, and you guys are just throw yourselves into the cauldron and like deliver the goods. I mean, time and time again, man.
I've said this 100 times that SSD was a live band. I mean, our shows, we didn't play a lot of them, and so each one was an event. And we brought the energy for sure. That was our goal. Was just no matter how shitty we're playing, we're gonna be going off 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, that. And by the way, Larry Kelly says people are still dying at that rehearsal place.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
You brought up that Ellen Foley thing. I remember so well when you went to that show, Chris, and you told me about. Oh yeah, she said my boyfriend's in a punk band too. I remember that line really well.
That's great.
Knocked me over. Great.
My girlfriend's in a punk band. That's great. Yeah. You know what? And not to go backwards, but I just want to be able to. Here's a shot from one of those first Gallery East shows, and Jamie on the right in the Alva shirt, and I like the early Gallery East shows where they put the they put the plywood over the windows.
Yeah, it was a massive floor to ceiling window right behind us. So. Yeah, it was susceptible to damage for sure.
Yeah,
that's a great shot. I love that shot, man.
Yeah,
that's probably the first show, I think.
Yeah, I think it is, and I'm just trying to figure out what Al's playing out of. Is it a? It looks like an Ampeg combo connected.
He had a Marshall combo. It was a 50 watt 212 combo, and he had a 412 Ampeg cab,
Yeah,
and he
and
would,
he connect them.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I had an Ampeg 410 with like
I see that. Yeah, with a
early
PV,
sales
with a
had
P, with a PV head.
PV,
we
the
had,
PV, yeah.
Like Leonard Skinner played through PV stuff back then, you know. So you know, there was that kind of a thing, and you know, just in going along with sort of the progression of things here, Chris. You know, things. Here's a shot. I guess this was towards the end of the run. I think this was at the Olympic Auditorium, and you know, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong.
God.
It looks like you're singing back there.
That's what I was just going to say. It looks like I was singing. I think
me too.
Jamie and I did we sing backups to Screams of the Night or something? I think
That
we
could
did.
be. Yeah, I don't recall doing backup vocals, but obviously I did.
There's
Yeah.
something going on here. Both of you guys are hitting the note, man.
Look at those. Look at what Al and I are playing for guitars too.
I know.
Al's got the Warlock, and I got like this Hamer Explorer with a whammy bar. We were out of our minds.
I know. I like with Al was dressed up there. He's wearing a shirt with a collar. Have you ever seen Al wear a shirt with a collar? I don't know as I ever have. You know?
I guess this is
we were dressing up.
I thought this was the same show, but I guess it's not because I guess this isn't the same show. I thought this was the same show, but it's not.
Yeah, no, definitely
unless Al was working. No, it's not. It's not.
No,
And
it can't be.
what's this? A Yamaha drum set, Chris?
Where the hell is that in LA?
Yeah, I think I got it wrong. I think this one is the LA show
where we've got stuff thrown at us, and we were playing way too slow for people. I think.
Yeah. At those shows, we would have had a different backline. We just showed up with, we flew in for those shows.
Yeah.
Right. By that point, you guys were flying in for shows, huh?
Well, a couple of times, anyways.
Yeah.
And they pay your way.
Oh yeah,
of course. And that'd be it. You know, they pay your way.
They still do.
It's a vacation. You know what I mean?
They still do. We'll fly out here, but you could sell some.
Yeah, figure it out from there.
Yeah, they put us up at the Tropicana Hotel. You remember that?
Oh yeah,
that place on Sunset. It was like a rock and roll.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it's like where Janis Joplin OD'd or something.
Yeah.
It's just like where Mama Cass choked on the ham sandwich, which she never really choked on. But
I remember we came home from the gig that night, and there was like this crazy pool party going on. It just it was a wild scene there. It was really fun.
Yeah. Right on. I guess Chris, as it was winding down, did you feel like it was winding down towards the end there? Was it time for SSD to sort of where were you with that whole thing?
I probably felt like it was at that. I mean, I have to say now in hindsight, also having been through numerous bands since then,
right,
which is like being in numerous relationships. I've never been in a band that could do a reunion tour, first off. So, I've only done that like once with a band. So when it comes time, it kind of, sometimes it feels like it's time, and at that point, who knows whether maybe taking a break would have given us a little more room to carry on at some point. And I think maybe even in the early 90s when the compilation record came out, there was a little bit of talk of doing some kind of touring, but I don't know what that would have been like if we had tried to do that and gone out with it, because on some level it really was of a time, it really was about that particular point in time, where music was, where bands were doing, kind of, there was heavy metal and hair bands going on, and then there was this alternative thing that really was an alternative to what was going on in the mainstream. And by the 90s, it was the mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, I heard somebody once say, they were talking about the Beastie Boys fight for your right to party. And they were like, you know what? We won. We get to party, you know, and that's probably, if you look at the extension of like the Vans Warped Tour, you know, that those things came about because of what we did way back 10 years before that.
Sure.
So, you know, I feel like it carried on in so many different ways. And that we had changed so much at that point. I don't know where we would have gone from that point, you know, because I think,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's just that we were trying to be a rock band at that point. And I think I think we talked about it earlier. A lot of the bands were kind of, learning their instruments, and they were like, hey, we can play a Led Zeppelin song now.
Yeah.
You know, we could play a Black Sabbath song instead of a Black Flag song, you know. So
it happened in the band that I was in. You know, I joined Antidote. Antidote was my favorite hardcore band, and you know, we started being influenced more by bands like Guns N' Roses than, you know, and things kind of went in another direction, and you know, that's kind of the way it went. It was, you know, I don't think there's a lot of bands that sort of survived that sort of, I don't want to call it maybe a dip in the road. There's not a lot of bands that sort of survived that, you know, it's like, you know, Jamie, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. We've all been asked this question a million times, you know, why did you guys transition to whatever we transitioned to? Yeah, I think we were all just getting a little bit better at our instruments. We were just, you know, there was no plan in place. Like Chris, you've been saying so much throughout this thing. There was no real plan. We were just winging it. You know, there was no, you know, we weren't looking to take over the world, you know, or become the next whatever. We were just doing what we thought was good, and you know, people not so much. People didn't like it so much. So what are you gonna do?
As the rhythm section, bass and drums, did you guys have a connection? Did you guys lock in, Chris?
I felt like we did. I felt like we you know, in some ways grew up together in that way. I mean, and you know, it's such an integral part, the kick drum and the bass guitar, you know, man, if those things aren't on, it's not happening. And I feel like Jamie always had my back, you know, like if we were getting lost, I could always look over and look at Jamie and go, what the hell's going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret that Chris was the only musician in the band, you know, so
right.
I learned a lot from him. I mean, he was definitely, you know, way above us, you know, level musicianship wise. So yeah, I mean, you know, playing with him was amazing. You know, and I don't think I appreciated it as I do today when I look back and I see or I listen to, you know, what he was doing with these songs. I mean, you know, Al would come in with a riff and would all just start fucking around with it, but Chris would bring it to, you know, another level. And then of course, you know, you mentioned when, you know, Francois came into the band, that was just a whole nother, you know, addition of weirdness to our sound that was really just, you know, put it all together, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, Jamie, I want to thank you for stopping by. That was cool,
Absolutely.
man. Yeah. And I love you. And I thank you for you and Angie for supporting, you know, the stuff that I do, man.
Absolutely,
It means
man.
a lot, you know?
All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, love you too. Good to see you, Jamie.
All right, man. Later.
Take care.
How was that for a surprise?
Oh, that's cool, man. Thank you. Thank you for that surprise.
Yeah, I thought it would be nice.
Good to see him. Good to see him.
Yeah. Let's take a couple of minutes and talk about sort of the aftermath of SSD, and you know, when that ended for you. You know, I know that like early on, I know you went to Berkeley while you were in SSD Control, and I know you started your career as a luthier, you know, while you were in SSD. But what was sort of the what happened, you know, with you, you know, when SSD Control ended, which I guess was 85, 86?
Yeah, I think it was 85. I mean, I ended up graduating from Berkeley in 87. So I kind of finished up there and kind of took a break musically from the hardcore stuff. I was engineering for being a sound engineer for a friend's band, and then they lost their drummer, and that was Crime and Punishment, and I sat in, and it was really just sitting in, and it took a little while before I started thinking about what I wanted to do.
Right.
And you know, Jamie mentioned that SSD really didn't play that much.
Right.
And one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to play. I wanted to, you know, Boston had a thriving music scene with all kinds of clubs. And, you know, I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be playing every weekend at a club in town, you know, just being part of that situation. And that's, you know, when I started looking again, and that's when I hooked up with Bulkhead. And actually, the thing about Bulkhead that hooked me into them was they had what was a demo tape and became a single that was produced by Lou Giordano.
The guy who produced the SSD control stuff.
Right. So, and none of us knew that, like, they did that before I even joined the band. And then, you know, I come to find out, oh, wow, we have this tiny little connection here. And, you know, and that actually ended up being, I made a couple records with them, and we played a lot of clubs in town, you know, and as a matter of fact, you've heard of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, probably.
Of course.
Right. So you remember the sneaker commercial, right?
Yes,
the Converse sneaker commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Bulkhead was the other band in contention for that commercial. We got taken to the Four Seasons and Wined and Dined and all that. I'm sure that we came across as like a conceited college band who was like, we're not going to sell out we won't sell out. And I'm like, put on the Converse, guys, let's go, come on. And well, we all know how that story went. So, but you know, those are my little connections there.
Sure. And then, you know, I remember, you know, later on, you know, the scuttlebutt was, you know, Chris Foley's in a band that's, you know, signed to Warner Brothers, and like, you know, Chris was it Warner Brothers? When you were playing with Jen Trinan, right?
Yeah. Jen Trinan.
I remember it's like, all right, you know, one of our guys, you know, reached the promised land, you know. So I know you played with Jen from like 95, summer 95 to like a couple years, right?
Yeah, we did a couple years together, and what was cool about that was, well, I thought she was ridiculously gutsy in that she went on WBCN and mentioned, I'm looking for a drummer, here's my phone number, which I thought that takes a lot of guts to just give out your phone number online or over the radio there. So I answered that. I gave her a call, and we ended up doing, in a 6-month span, we played like 50 shows in Boston.
Oh, wow.
And in Cambridge. And, you know, kind of just honed her skills. She was a great songwriter, great singer. She'll always be like one of my fave people.
Cool.
And, you know, she took me along for the ride. Her husband ran Q Division recording studios. And, you know, it was a real trip, you know, to be kind of go around to meet. We met all the heads of all the major studios.
Nice.
You know, made a couple of videos that got thrown away, and you know, it spent all kinds of money and toured the country a couple of times. You know, and I'll always be thankful that I actually had that opportunity to do that. It also opened my eyes to what life was really like if you're going to be an instrumentalist. You know, if you don't write songs and you don't sing songs, you're playing an instrument. You are kind of at, you're kind of at the whim of what's going on around you. So you got to find a situation that's actually going to be workable, and where you're going to be able to make it happen. And by the time, you know, I had fallen off my bicycle and got a screw in my shoulder and missed out on one of her tours, I was 32, and I was like, you know, man, I don't know if I can take another job where I'm making $750 a month. You know what I mean? You're at a certain point, you're like, you know, maybe I gave this a pretty good shot, you know, and I'll enjoy music in a different way. So you know, I still played in bands. I still Star Ghost Dog and a whole bunch of bands where, still recorded, still played around Boston, and even still did shows, traveling, but not so much worrying about like, am I going to be able to make a living playing music? Found other
Yeah.
ways to pay the rent.
Yeah, and we've talked about this many times on the show that, and I know in my life it's true. At a certain point, when everybody sort of did that and went and kind of got jobs and lives and wives and kids and got settled down and stopped sort of the nonsense. When we got back together after that, it was a really good place to be, because it wasn't, we need to pay our rent from this and we need to make and it was actually, we're doing it because we love it and we're doing it because we enjoy it. And that in a way, it was like a hobby. And that really opened up things, musically and creatively, for the situation that I was in,
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's really a gift to be able to do it. You know what I mean? When I could get together now and go and play a gig with a bunch of friends, and
sure,
man, it's just a blast to play music. It's always going to, for me, it's always going to be fun to sit behind a drum kit and play music.
Yeah, and give us a little take on Star Ghost Dog.
Oh, Star Ghost Dog, it was a great band. I joined probably around 2000 or so, 99, 2000, and it was a couple of they were a couple and songwriters, and they were great. I thought that they were really good. I kind of all the things that I thought that we were in a place where we were primed to kind of take off and do something. And again, it was that realization that it's a hard thing to put 200 people in a room, never mind 2,000 people in a room. We made a great album called The Great Indoors, which is probably one of my favorite albums that I played on. Again, it was one of those bands where it had its time, and then at a certain point we were, everybody was ready to call it quits. So, and I've done some other things. I played with this woman, Natalie Flanagan. It was a Thursday night gig for about 5 years. Every Thursday night we go down to this pub, and I would learn her songs on the spot, and it was right down the street from my house, literally like 2 right turns, and I'm there. And I'm like, that's why I live here. You live in the city because you want to play music,
Isn't that kind of like the thing you're doing now, Trusty Sidekick?
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, that grew out of that band because he was the bartender. And every night we'd get to the end of the night and he'd say, hey, can I play a song or two? And so he'd come up, he'd teach us the chords, and we'd play a song. And so after a year and a half, we had a new band called Trusty Sidekick without having no rehearsals at all. Just
and this is a project you do nowadays, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's not, maybe once a month we get to play out, and everybody's got lives and this and that. But
sure,
it's great to get out and play, and we're lucky enough that when I did that Thursday night gig, we ran into all kinds of people from back in the day, back in the Boston music scene.
Sure.
Richie Parsons, and the guy from the Neats, and just so many different people coming about. Bob Sensi. I ran into Bob Sensi he was going out with his acoustic guitar, playing songs. It was awesome. It was great to
these are the people that it's interesting. It's interesting to see all these years later who's still in it, Jack Choke Kelly is in it big time.
He blows me away, actually. That when I see people doing that kind of stuff, even I saw Harley from the Cro-Mags. Yeah. And I kind of watch. I find his stuff really interesting when he posts stuff. One day he had his Rickenbacker out and he was playing Rick James or something, just slapping away, and I'm like, dude, I love you, man. That's
These are guys, and they've also really taken care of themselves physically.
Yeah.
I mean, to do it at our age, because we are all the same age, you, me, I think Choke's maybe a year older than me, and Harley's probably your age. It's like you got to be in somewhat pretty good shape to get out there at this age, this age, and do it. So there's a couple of people. Yeah. So that said, let me take my last sponsor break. It'll be a quick one. And let's come back and take questions from around the world, okay?
All right, we'll see.
All right, see you soon. Yeah, I told you it was going to be a good one. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Of course it is. And our guest today is our old friend, Chris Foley from SSD Control, SSD, and Bulkhead and Star Ghost Dog. And we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Generation Records, Grunge and Grime Soap Company, DTFM Vinyl Distro, and 126 Hardcore Clothing. It's a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them and ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. Last but not least on this run, Devin and DTFM Vinyl Distro. Looking for extreme music? DTFM has got you. Located on 13th Ave in Fargo, North Dakota, we have the state's best selection of punk, hardcore, metal, ska, oi, and more. Can't make it in? Shop online from anywhere in the country at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com, where the policy still is and always will be death to false metal. That said, I think we covered a lot. A week from today, 1 week from today, there is no show on Wednesday. A week from today, Brooke Smith will be on the show talking about her Sunday matinee book. This will be a cool one. And then right after that, of course, RB Corbett will be on the show. Questions for our guest? I know you've a couple people have posted throughout the show. Please repost. Let's ask Chris Foley some questions about this, that, and the other thing. If you want to get to the front of the line, or you want to contribute to the show, there's a super chat function. Please contribute to that. Yes, Patreon. Thank you. Please. There's the Patreon address. $2 a month, $5 a month. Please jump in, throw your hat in the ring. Mentioned everything else, right? Also, you know what I don't really mention too much is if you have a communication device, pick it up. Follow the show on Instagram at Stone Films NYC on Instagram. That is Stone Films NYC. So get down, get up and get down. Please post your questions now, and let's bring our guest back, the one, the only, Mr. Chris Foley. There you go.
All right.
What do you got? Let's start with this from our friend Leanna Ness. What was Chris's impression of LA and the punks there when they went out to play SSD?
It was a little bit overwhelming, to be honest with you.
I would think so.
You go out there and everything was multiplied by like 10.
Yeah.
So the size of the shows, people at the shows. I had such a blast going to LA. I mean, SSD is the band that like got me to cities I'd never been in before,
Sure.
So that was such a wild experience. Really, the main thing was just the size of. I remember doing a show with Red Cross.
Was it Suicidal, right, at the Olympic Auditorium?
Yep, Suicidal with the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah, right. Do I have that? Let me.
And the Minutemen. I remember hanging out with D Boone from the Minutemen. Oh man, that was. I do remember chatting with other musicians and just being totally psyched to be in with like.
Bingo! I got it.
Meet and Flea,
If anybody wonders what I do when I sit on airplanes, I label shit like this so it's right at our fingertips.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me clear the deck. Hold on. We got to take a gander at this one. Yeah. SSD Control.
Minutemen.
Suicidal SSD, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Minutemen, and The Abandoned. What
Yeah.
the fuck, man?
And I remember, I believe that Anthony from the Red Hot Chili Peppers had some sort of traffic violation, so he wasn't able to make it. And that Circle Jerks, Keith from the Circle
Morris?
Jerks,
Really?
he got up and he just said, "Funky Chicken," basically to every song through every. They did a set with him, and he just kept going, "Funky Chicken," and that was all he knew.
Oh my
That's all he
God,
did,
that's
but
funny. That's
it was a
fucking
blast.
funny.
It was
Yeah.
a blast.
This is a good question. Darren says, "I see that you have guitars behind you, Chris. Do you restore or build guitars?"
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have a really bad eBay habit, and I buy parts and pieces and put them together. But during COVID, I had a little more time on my hands, so I started getting back into making acoustic guitars, which actually I'm having a lot of fun with. If I had a dream, if I could quit my job and do something all day long, I would make acoustic guitars. So yeah, I do that, and my partner doesn't know exactly how many guitars I have stashed away in the basement, but
Right. Looks like a lot.
she knows it's good for my psyche just to not worry about the guitars. I think she
Sure.
knows.
And
Just
if
don't worry.
somebody wanted to reach out to you regarding your instruments, that's the Instagram, Christopher.Foley.359. Chris checks his Instagram about once a year. So if you leave him
about
a
Once or twice. Drew,
So-
you introduced me to Facebook, so you know what the
Right.
hell, man.
right, there you go.
What 15 years ago, whatever it was. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Favorite from Paul Stone, favorite guitar to play or work on?
Okay, so I am like a big fan of Japanese 70s and 80s Les Paul copies.
Wow.
So they were called the lawsuit guitars, and they were guitars. They were sold only into Japan until Gibson caught up with them and said, "We're going to sue you, or maybe why don't you start making our Epiphone guitars instead?" So that's what happened. So I'm kind of obsessed with it, and yeah. So I play usually a Les Paul. I just picked up some parts and pieces for a Telecaster last week, which now that's my favorite guitar now is a Telecaster.
All right.
Talk to me next week, and we'll see what it is. You know.
Great. Here's one from our buddy Astoria Lou, and I'm going to dig out a photo as we look. Thoughts on playing in New York City at A7 and CBGB's?
Oh, you know, I don't even know what to say. I mean, just to have been a part of that and to have been involved with that. I remember playing the A7 and just going on at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something, coming off stage and walking outside, and the sun was just coming up. And man, I was still a senior in high school at that point. So to be able to go down to New York City and be a part of that was just, for me, just mind blowing. I mean, there's Harley sitting on the stage right there.
Yeah, that's actually Eric Casanova, but Harley's
in the is it?
That's the original Cro-Mag singer, and on his forehead it says Cro-Mag.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah, yep. but there's a couple photos, and this of course is a Phil and Flash photo who just documented so much great SSD stuff, and there is a book that's on its way to come out that Al and Nancy Barilla are quarterbacking, an SSD book that of all Phil's photos. But yeah, there's the infamous A7. Here's another one. God. And I saw you guys play A7. It was nuts. I mean, it was like playing a closet, bro.
I was playing a closet. I remember guys like fights breaking out like right next to me. You know, guys with studded belts like wrapping their hand and getting to, and I was like, what the hell? What am I into this? But it was just so freaking intense, you know, and the music and Reagan Youth. I think I remember them. And oh man, the Mob. Oh, there was some shows that went on down there that, I mean,
You know what was intense? Just
Crazy.
a personal memory of mine is like when you guys played Irving Plaza. The two times you played Irving Plaza, once with Minor Threat and once with the Bad Brains. Those Irving Plaza shows were really fucking great, man.
They were, that is amazing stuff, you know.
Yeah.
When we were actually able to play on a stage that had like
right.
full sound and monitors and everything. Oh my God. You know?
Yeah. Here's a good question from Larry Kelly, Mr. Wolf. What are your thoughts on the legacy of SSD with the younger generation, like the youth crew movement?
Well, what exactly is the youth crew movement?
The youth crew movement is sort of, they took the straight edge thing and kind of went forward with it,
right?
And really cite SSD as being a huge influence for them.
Well, and I you know, excuse my ignorance on it, and that's kind of what I was thinking. You know, the straight edge thing for me, I think it was very different from what it was for a lot of other people. It meant so much to me because, believe it or not, when I was 15, I was a binge drinker on the weekends. That's what we did. We partied. You went out and you got high and you drank, and that rock and roll, and that's what it was about. And I still remember the conversation in a McDonald's parking lot where Al was basically trying to convince me, like, look, you don't need any of that to go out and play great music. Like, you could just go out, we could just go out and be so fucking intense that you don't need any of this other stuff. You don't need that to get high. You don't need that, you know, for what you're doing. So, you know, that kind of tumbles ahead and people take that idea and go with it. And I think that's great. I think it's, you know, if it's helped people, you know, with their own lives to get a direction, then I think it's awesome. I mean, you and I know that there were plenty of people in our scene who were not straight or straight edge or any of that.
Absolutely.
And you know, I myself, I smoked a lot of weed back then, you know, and I think that those straight edge was conversations that I had with Al Baril about, do you need this or not? Do I need this or not? You know, and I think the fact that if people have been able to take it and kind of run with the idea, you take it for what it means to you.
Yeah.
You know, you take it for what it means in your personal life and how it moves you ahead. So I think it's great. I think it's cool to hear it. You know, I stay away from anything that ends up being kind of a dogma or preaching or, you know, rules to live by, you know, my rules, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what it ends up being in your own life.
Certainly. Yeah. Certainly having been there at Ground Zero, when Minor Threat did just a song called Straight Edge, and then seeing that whole thing, you know, be taken and what it's turned into, you know, as a bystander has been, you know, I don't want to say nothing short of bizarre, but certainly interesting. That you know, you could be there at Ground Zero, see a little germ planted, and now, you know, and then see it sort of just compound on itself, and then see like radical factions of it, and it's like, wow, that's wild. But Astoria Lou just reminded me and sent me this photo, and this is interesting. This is these photos were there was a last couple of photos when Bridget Collins let me scan her photographs for the Boston Hardcore film. This was under like New York trip. So this is when all you guys came down to New York for to play Irving Plaza. And this is in front on 48th Street in front of a place called We Buy Guitars. And you guys were on 48th Street and a couple pictures were taken when you guys sort of like gawking in the windows.
In the store, yeah.
Yeah, now I got to dig out the We Buy picture. Hold on, because
Yeah,
you'll
we buy
remember this.
guitars. I buy
Yeah.
too many of them.
Yeah, this was a place on 48th Street. Like, and none of the stuff exists anymore. But
Oh, sure.
we all used to go down there and basically just stare into the window of We Buy and fantasize.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, you would just be like, and they were just hanging the guitars by like wire in the window, like, and they're just banging into each other. This is when like you could walk in there and get like a Les Paul for like $300 or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, shit like that.
See that?
Yeah, and Manny's. Yeah, Alberto says, yeah, it was on that street. There was Manny's, Rudy's, We Buy Guitar. Yes, Music Row. And Jamie says, we went to 48th Street every time we were in New York City. So, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I want to just look at that picture now.
Yeah, you could see. I can even see there's like in a little off to the middle. There's like a telecast. Looks like an early Telecaster hanging there. Crazy stuff.
Thousands of dollars.
That's great stuff. Our friend and resident historian Chucky Brown says back in 1993, MTV's Live and Loud show, excuse me, Christ, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Christ Novoselic from Nirvana wore an SSD shirt. Did he see that? I believe Dee Dee Ramone and Ben Shepherd from Soundgarden wore the shirt too for a show and photo shoot. And I remember when Nirvana was at the peak of their shit, dudes wearing an SSD shirt. It was like, oh, wow.
Oh, my God. I remember because it was my first wife, and I was upstairs, and it was New Year's Day. And she's like, Chris, get down here now. And I come running downstairs, and there it is on TV. And I'm like, man, I'm a has-been who never was. This is crazy. Like Nirvana is wearing this shirt. It was kind of mind-blowing. And I think that's when you start to go, oh, maybe it did mean a little more than just what we were doing. It actually became something else. And to see we talked about it, that like what people get for one of the first SSD records and what they've been able to get that for. I'm like, I start to think, okay, well, that makes it a piece of art because it's something that people want to have and hold on to and be a part of and hold in their hand. You know what I mean? And that's pretty cool. I'm pretty lucky that I actually was involved in anything that 40 years later, we're still talking about it. I mean, that's awesome.
Absolutely. And we also talked about, I know we're kind of, but while we're going to go backwards a little bit on this, it like the same kind of thing. You told me when you went to this Clash show, you ended up with a stack of posters and you basically held on to them for 40 years. And recently you sold them on eBay for like some ridiculous amount of money.
Oh, it's absurd. And my buddy and I, unfortunately he was in a flood and he lost all of his. So I framed one up really nice and made it really nice and sent it to him. And that was such a great memory from that show. And then, to make $700 off of a poster is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah. That's just great. And, I know that, in later years, you kind of sold off some of your SSD memorabilia, but good for you, man. It's like, and we were laughing about it a couple days ago about how, you got to see some money for the band. You just had to hold on to the shit for 40 years.
You just have to be patient. Very, very patient. That's right.
I sold the records 40 years later on eBay,
and that bought me the wood for that guitar behind me. That's what it pays for, is a couple more guitars or something.
Well, that's great when something like that happens, when you sort of roll something into something else, and then that kind of a thing. But everyone's commented, yes, all that is gone on 48th Street. None of those stores exist anymore. It is totally totally gone. That said, let me see what else we got. How is it being in a van with Alan Springer? Ooh, good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. You know, it wasn't just Alan Springer though,
Yeah,
because
right.
there were nine, usually like nine guys in a van with no windows and all the equipment. So yeah, there were times where we would try to wrangle in Springer, but I remember the trip across the country with Jake Phelps and Al Baril, and at one point they were like nose to nose about to go at it. I don't even remember what it was. It was probably something really extremely stupid.
Yeah,
But,
right. Of course.
but I was thinking, I'm going to have to walk home from Iowa. This will not be good.
Right. This is not going to end pretty, right?
So I think Springer and I, we both slept on the picnic benches at the rest stop that night. So
right.
Yeah, it was, you know, being in a van like that with a bunch of guys, that's when it's like being in the Boy Scouts, really.
You know, I wasn't in the van much, but one time I was, and I don't need to get into the circumstances. There was something happening with my van, but I remember Springer's technique, which was very funny. Of course, he wouldn't, you know, what people would do is they jump in the van early to get a spot, you know, but Springer, being of the mentality he was, he was so busy in his world that he would jump into the van at the last second always. And his technique was he'd jump in the van and then thrash about like a maniac. He'd thrash about so he could sort of settle in, and then people would kind of beat on him a little bit, but he would end up sort of jumping in and thrashing about, and then taking a little bit of a beating, but he'd get a spot.
Dude, yeah, the well by the door was like a prized spot. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're about to fall out of the van, and it's
that was
the
a
best spot
because you can hang your arm in it. You know. That's
my God.
That's great. Is this the company that you work at?
Yeah, Burkhart Flutes. Yep.
Yeah. As we head towards the door, tell us a little bit about the company and how long you've been there.
I've actually been. It's a woman named Lillian Burkhart, and I've been making instruments with her name on it for like the last almost 30 years.
Wow.
And I started out working as a subcontractor in my basement. She showed me how to do it and make the key work. And I was playing in bands. Actually, when I was in Gentrine, and I was sometimes I would go home and make a piccolo. And then you know, came time to get serious, and she offered me a position as a manager. And so kind of I've been doing that, you know, the making and managing. And right now, admittedly, I'm behind a computer all day, but
is she still around? Does she still own the company?
Actually, we just became an employee stock-owned company, so I'm part owner of the company, and everybody else is.
Nice.
But she is around a couple days a week. She's still there. But you know, you talk about 40 years. I'm the old guy at the company. Like I have all the historical knowledge of what's gone on over the years.
Sure.
And even though I cannot play the flute at all, just so you know, I know how to make them top to bottom, but I don't play them. So
you never just sort of poked around. Or
I tried, but I got really lightheaded, you know.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
And it's you know, it's funny because it's really a classical instrument in so many ways. We had one guy come in who was a sax player who would play the blues on the flute. And I was like, thank God, a blue note every now and then, bro. Help me out here, you know?
Right.
But it's you know, the people who are dedicated to playing classical music, if you think hardcore people are crazy about their music, oh my God, forget about it. People who are practicing all the time.
And here's some of your babies, right?
Yeah. Actually, the one in the middle, that one is 40 years old. That one I made. Francois and I spent a year with a luthier right out of high school, and he taught us how to make a guitar. So that one's 40. The other two,
I like the cutaway on that one. It's pretty pronounced, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He said, cut away.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
We faked it. You can it's almost playable, but 40 years later, it's kind of rough. The other two, though, the one on the left I made during COVID, and the one on the right, actually, I'm still finishing now. So
right on.
It's a lot of fun, man. Keeps me busy.
Good. Well, hey, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I knew it was going to be great. You brought joy to my world, man. I just want to say that, man. You really did. I've been going through some stuff on my end with my dad, who's got some health issues and been under a lot of stress. And this was a really great, show for me. And I just feel I knew it was going to be great. So thank you.
Awesome. That's great.
Anybody you want to shout out? Anybody you want to thank and acknowledge?
Well, I'll shout out to my flute peeps out there who are my flute maker friends, and obviously to my son Seamus, who is going to be famous Seamus. You'll hear about him. You're going to hear about him playing hockey someday. But and to all my band people out there, all the SSD folks who are keeping it going. Great to see Jamie again. Hopefully, I'll get to see him playing his bass soon.
Absolutely. Are you a Boston Bruins fan?
Oh, of course I'm a Boston Bruins fan. Yeah, I mean, right now you got to be loving it right now. I mean, Bruins, Celtics, they're winning it.
Yeah, we're down here. We're Ranger fans down here. So we're having a tough season. But like I said to you before, hockey is the only sport that I remotely enjoy watching anymore, because other sports have just changed so much. Football's not the football I grew up on. There's no defense anymore. There's no running game. Penalties. Baseball, they've changed. Hockey, I enjoy hockey still.
And can I tell you, some of it is because it's a game that takes us a set amount of time.
Yeah.
So when it's going to be, and I'm telling you, my son's games the last 2 days. They won yesterday with 1.9 seconds left in the game.
Whoa.
I almost had a heart attack. I mean, I don't know how I became a hockey dad. I can't skate. I can't play. But
well, you're a Massachusetts guy, man. And
that's right.
Hockey's big.
You gotta be.
It is. Hockey's big in Massachusetts. Yo, I want to shout out all the Foleys that watched the show today. Elizabeth and your brother and everybody else, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got a lot of them. They're spread out all over the place. So
yeah. All right, Chris. I'll talk to you soon, man. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great, Drew.
My pleasure.
Love you, man.
I love you too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Man. Bye.
Well, there you go. Right? Delivering the goods. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Delivering the goods. Great show with our old friend Chris Foley. I want to thank everybody in the SSD Control family: Al Burrill, Nancy Burrill, Jamie, Larry Kelly, all the Boston, Massachusetts people, Leanna, everybody that poked their head in today. Shouting out Sean Brennan, the guitar player for ID. We're mixing our record now. Don't worry, it'll be out in probably 30 years. The way that things are moving. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for coming on. It was great. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Michael, all right, Drew, new movie deal. Yeah, well, my new film is with the distributor. I can't officially talk about the new film I'm doing. But if you read the Biohazard press release, you kind of know what's going on. Incendiary Devices mixing. We're doing the new record. We'll be doing some videos. And the Volume 2 book is moving along. And if you're interested in what's going on with the Volume 2 book and you're not a patron, you should be a patron, because I'm posting up all the interviews on Patreon. So, take your yarmulke off and get with the program. Also want to mention, this is going to be announced on social media, that the holiday show, we're doing a holiday show for everyone like myself that doesn't have a lot of family around. We will be gathering here on Christmas Day. We're going to bring on all kinds of people, probably you as well. I'll probably put the link in the chat room, and would love to just hear from everybody out there. So that's going to be happening on Sunday, December 25th. That said, yeah, I know, right? Thank you, Rap Bones. Show's always great when you walk down memory lane with the guest. Great time today. It was, man. Yes, and thank you for everybody that's sent their thoughts and prayers for my dad. Just the update, he's having a hard time, man. He's having a bit of a hard time. He went and had hip replacement surgery, at 90 years old, and there was complications, and he's in an assisted living place right now, and we're trying to figure out what the next move is. He's just not recovering, so it's tough. It's tough stuff, What are you sending me, Al Baril? Yeah, thank you, Al. I know. Yeah, yes. Thank you, everybody that's asking. Yes, the Christmas show will be great. So that said, a week from today, we'll be back with Brooke Smith, and so that should be very, very cool. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody. Let me clear the deck. Let me clear the deck here for my goodbye. Thanks a lot. Once again, great show. Thanks for the support. Have a good Thanksgiving. Until then, do good things and good things will come to you.